Throughout history, there have been wars, conflicts, disagreements, and hatred. On a micro level, the same could be said for each one of us. Conflicts can rage internally, hearts break, eyes go blind with redness from anger, and minds refuse to reconcile. But there's good news. A road, or what others may call a path or journey, is available to all of us. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Robert Frost.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found.
You screwed up, you try to take your life, and now you're blind. Because I made my efforts to forgive and let go of that.
I want to heal, and you don't heal by yelling at each other, and you don't heal by fighting. You heal by holding each other's hands and saying, let's deal with this together.
These are some of the people you'll meet over the next hour. They are brave souls as they will express their deepest feelings, secrets, and challenges through forgiveness. They've taken the road less traveled. According to a recent survey by Strategy 1, commissioned by the Fetzer Institute, 61% of the Americans surveyed express a universal desire for a more loving and unified world. Here's the most interesting part of the survey. Americans have a desire for more forgiveness in their lives, but more than half said there are situations where people should never be forgiven. The unforgivable acts are murder, abuse, or sexual crimes, or any intentionally committed crime. Additionally, 60% of Americans believe that forgiving someone would first depend on the offender apologizing and making changes. After recognizing these statistics, these stories had to be told.
The news came on the wings of a wind reluctant to carry its burden. Nelson Mandela's day is done.
We are gathered here to pay respect to a man that literally changed the course of history in our lifetime, Nelson Mandela. 1918 until 2013, a remarkable man.
Though Nelson Mandela has passed, his message of reconciliation and forgiveness lives on. One question remains: are we able to apply forgiveness in our own lives as Mandela did? The very Reverend Walden explains.
Matt, I think all of us have the ability to forgive. All of us have the capacity to forgive. The problem is doing it. It's so much easier said than done. And you're right. You're right. Not everyone could ever forgive like Nelson Mandela did. No one will even approach the life that he had to live and what he had to overcome to even begin forgiveness.
And I think his personal liberation from anger at his guards, anger at the the whole place is unbelievable how he stepped out of that.
Actually, when he was sent into prison, that trial was not the first time he had been tried for treason. Mm-hmm. The first time was in 1956 with all of these people in this picture. And interestingly, you see black, white, Indian faces, this interracial group of people who were brought to trial by the apartheid government for their role in protesting apartheid. Forgiveness was absolutely part of the future that he envisioned for his country, and he realized that it was only through a process of reconciliation and forgiving that the country would be able to move forward.
Mandela, he had the weight of the nation on him, and so really being in that situation, Mandela was, I'm sure that he was thinking like, if I show anger, if I show revenge, if I show that my desires to strike out at my opposition, that is surely going to be the national model for how to reconcile. And he did not want to go down that road.
Before you, not as a prophet, but as a humble servant of you, the people.
He always viewed himself as it's not enough to just cast off your chains, but you have to be respectful of others, that you also reach out and help them to cast off their chain.
As I walked out the door toward the gate that would lead to my freedom, I knew if I didn't leave my bitterness and hatred behind, I'd still be in prison. It's Mandela's hope that these words have spread across the world with a message that hate and anger isn't the answer, and that forgiveness is achievable.
It's like a seed has been planted. And look at the dandelion. The little seeds will blow all over. I don't think forgiveness belongs to the individual. It's bigger than the person. Sometimes when I watch the tide go out, I am from islands. It's like everything is exposed. So you see the shells, the fish, the rock, the sand, and everything. So this is the point where we are all the same. And to me, it's like forgiveness.
It always seems like if you forgive someone that you actually relieve yourself of a large burden. Otherwise, it's something that you have to carry around that just burdens your life. And so by forgiving others, you really are doing yourself a service.
The memorial at the Cathedral of St. Mark celebrated and honored the life of Nelson Mandela and his message of forgiveness and reconciliation. The orchestra, the spiritual setting of the cathedral, and the silent meditation that followed created an overwhelming curiosity. The process of forgiveness and how it's viewed in various faith traditions.
Well, the forgiveness it's fundamental to the faith, because first of all, we have to realize that we need to be forgiven, because everyone has sinned against God. The one person who absolutely deserves no evil, because he's given us everything. He gives us his life. In the person of Jesus Christ, he gave us himself. And so he has forgiven us. It's quite clear we have to forgive.
And if we don't?
Then we won't be forgiven. And if you don't forgive, it's really stupid, because you're still hostage to the evil that was done to you. Oh, so-and-so did this, and they did this to me, and I'm going to do this back to them. Oh, I'm going to get them one day. You're imprisoned.
What I'd like to do first is one small prayer that has to do with exactly what your topic is addressing. Okay? How important it is to Tibetan Buddhism, I would expand it. It's important to all traditions, but it's important to being a human being. It's important to propagating and progressing our humanity. To be able to forgive your enemies can make a difference to one's spiritual progress. If you have strong compassion, strong respect for others, then forgiveness is much easier. Mainly for this reason, he says, I do not want to harm another. Forgiveness allows you to be in touch with these positive emotions.
In Judaism, when we ask for forgiveness, there are steps, right? When we apologize. So, first of all, we have to admit wrongdoing. Second, we have to try and make restitution in any way that we can. Some circumstances is harder than others. Third, when we're in the same situation again, we have to behave differently. And forgiveness, to a certain degree, is dependent upon the person asking forgiveness making those steps towards making themselves better, and that makes us as a community better. Forgiveness is the ability to acknowledge that people will make mistakes and finding a way to move forward, given that we are only people. We're made in the image of God, we're not God. And so accepting the humanity of other people, I think, is to a certain degree what forgiveness is.
The Quran says that the family of the person who has been murdered, the family of the victim, has the right to demand punishment for the murderer once he's caught and found guilty. But to forgive is better. The perpetrator of that act of murder was aided by Shaitan. In other words, have compassion for this guilty person. He was aided by the devil. So if we forgive others in this life, then God will reciprocate that by forgiving us on the Day of Judgment.
There's an understanding that we are forgiven by God, and that God asks us to do that for others. I think very central and foundational to what Jesus came to do was to forgive, and we're called to walk behind him in those actions. I think as a pastor, I would want to say that I would encourage my people and say, you could forgive anything. I would want to help them do that.
How do you use the word forgiveness? There is really nothing like forgiveness in Hinduism, because Hinduism goes more like you're responsible for your deeds, your thoughts, your actions even, and your behavior. So since you're responsible, you face the benefit or the negative effect of such behavior, such thought, or such deed. All we are saying is forgiveness alone will not solve the situation. There's always daya and kripa, which are kindness and tolerance, and you understand, you vibe with what happened. But you don't excuse the thief of doing the negative deed of coveting somebody else's. You give him that punishment, but at the same time, be kind and gentle to not eke out a punishment that's more than warranted by the deed.
According to some estimates, there are roughly 4,200 religions in the world. This would prove to be a difficult task, understanding every religion's view of forgiveness. What can be understood, at least from the spiritual leaders interviewed, is that though religions differ in tradition and dogma, the elements of forgiveness are extremely similar. Forgiveness is also evident in a growing tradition called Unity, a New Thought Christian church founded by Charles Fillmore in 1889. Reverend Sandra Malbon shows us about Unity's view on forgiveness.
Unity, we believe that everyone is responsible for their own lives. And we're responsible for our creations through our thoughts and our beliefs and our emotions. So Jesus taught us how to live in a Christ consciousness, and that is to be love, to be love. It is up to us then to be in forgiveness as a way of demonstrating love.
You've been on my mind. I grow fonder every day.
So, the benefit of forgiving is that you will experience your God self. You'll experience your full potential. You'll open yourself to blessings rather than being closed off to blessings. Carl Jung called it the collective unconscious, and Charles Fillmore called it race consciousness. What he meant was human race consciousness. So there's a blanket of consciousness for good and a lot for bad that surrounds the planet. It feeds us and we feed it. I take responsibility for myself, my actions, my thoughts, my beliefs, and I forgive and I love, and it goes out into that race consciousness and changes it so that more and more people find themselves also forgiving and loving and wanting harmony and peace in their lives.
You said that Sandra touched you with her message today.
Well, she did, because especially at the end when she talked about her sister dying last night. And I just shared with her that when my father died several years ago, and the last thing I said to him was, I'm looking forward to one of our good old-fashioned father-daughter talks. And, but we never resolved anything. And so when he died, it just ached. It just ached. And I hadn't had a chance to forgive him for everything he'd done to hurt me.
I noticed you were getting a little emotional, I think, during the service. Anything that was touching?
The gentleman that she talked about, she said that his name was Tom and that he was an alcoholic. And 2 years ago, my father was in a wreck on Christmas Eve. It was an alcohol-related accident, and the baby that was in the car that he hit ended up passing away. And my dad's in prison until 2027. So.
Someone else who has experienced prison is Matt Duhamel, who was arrested in 2006. Matt agreed to work one-on-one with Kim Giles, a life coach and a published author. They talked about Matt's past and his disconnect with his estranged daughter, Maddie. A few years back, actually about 8-9 years ago, I made just some stupid mistakes on the computer. I was incarcerated for it for about 4 years. It involved just very stupid mistakes, poor choices. Started creating some websites with some underage models. The photos got too much that were sent to me. Mm-hmm. Even though they weren't considered nude, they were considered illegal because of the way they were posing and the type of outfits they were wearing.
Okay.
And so they arrested me. I went to prison for 4 years, halfway house. But yeah, it was a lot of money involved. People going onto the websites, It was not sex, children, and adults.
Yeah.
No. It was provocative poses and inappropriate clothing. I have to stop doing this business. I knew I had to. I cried about it. I honestly, I was torn apart emotionally. I was like, why am I doing this? I have to stop. So the whole issue that I'm facing with the forgiveness, how this ties in, is the lack of relationship with my own daughter, who I've not had a relationship since.
So you've got some issues with forgiving yourself, but you've also got a lot of pain around her inability or not being ready to forgive you. This is probably the most painful part still for you, is that she's not open to forgive you, give you another chance.
Not at this point. I have worked a lot through the self-forgiveness. I don't know if I'm fully there yet. That's something that I'm still working on. Has she forgiven me? She won't respond to anything I've said or done. And I'm just at least want some reconciliation, like coming together and just being able to communicate. That communication is gone, and that is the worst thing. I think my daughter is scared of me because of what she's gone through.
And that just gotta hurt.
Yes, because I know that fear would dissipate within the first hour.
If
she would say, my gosh, I remember my dad. I remember my dad now. Maybe not the first hour, but maybe the first couple of days, first weeks or whatever. You know, I'm married now. I've got stepchildren. And if she can see me associating with my stepchildren and my wife, and as a responsible father and husband, then I think her opinion of me would just drastically change very quickly, and kind of get away from that sex offender label. We will hear more about Matt's story later on. Portland, Oregon is the home of international best-selling author Nassim Raqqa. Her novel, The Crying Tree, is an unforgettable look at the unbreakable bonds of family and the transformative power of forgiveness. The capacity to forgive the unforgivable has long intrigued Raqqa. She expressed interest in sharing her life in the book that has overwhelmed and mesmerized thousands of people.
Well, The Crying Tree is about what happens to a family when they are victims of crime. And in this case, it is the murder of their 15-year-old son. And so the book is about not only that wrenching loss, but about how one individual's path towards healing is through forgiveness. And so my book was to question what does actually bring back balance into one's life, and the role that forgiveness plays in so many people's lives. And in this particular, it's looking at a family. But you know, all of my interviews and research showed overwhelmingly that it was the people who suffered these incredible losses, just devastating, wrenching losses, and were able to walk through their natural fire of anger and fear and helplessness and hate and vengeance, and able to walk through it and come to the other side and realize that holding on to all that kind of energy is not helping them heal. And ultimately, that is what they were seeking. And in order to heal, they had to come to a point of forgiveness.
What do you want readers to take away from The Crying Tree?
I want readers to take away an experience of a family that is very real. I write books, I write essays that are meant to give people a very real experience and allow people to feel a sense of empathy for all characters. There's no good or bad. There's very gray characters, and they carry both good and bad inside of them, just like each one of us do, I believe. So what I want people to take away is a sense that they've had an experience of something they've never had before, and it's given them routes to think about very significant and important issues such as forgiveness, and be able to think about them in a deeper way and want to reach out and talk to someone about them.
20 floors above the Portland skyline, Nassim discussed her novel, Restorative Justice, and her experiences as an international reporter. The conversation touched on the complicated layers of forgiveness and how it impacts the people around us. The interview then came to an interesting discussion about perpetrators, their victims, and the chance to make amends.
I know many men and women behind bars who are in that situation, where they have done a lot of internal soul searching in classes and have come to this place where, you know, they have healed in many ways, and they want to give back, and they want to help their victims in some way. They're not asking for forgiveness. That would be an ideal, that'd be a dream, but they know they don't deserve that.
At first, Vicky was hesitant in speaking about this very subject. Before the interview, she had admitted she was nervous about talking about the pain she endured as a child. Vicky is the editor of New Connection, a conscious living magazine of the Pacific Northwest, where she writes about a variety of issues, including forgiveness. She mentions that she discovered this inner world of wisdom through her efforts to overcome issues of childhood abuse. After spending time off camera, she agreed to share her emotional burning bowl ceremony.
In this moment, I'd like to call upon the healing energy of the universe. And I'd like to call for a healing. And I'd like to call for a moment of forgiveness for myself, for my stepfather, and for my mother. And I ask that we be set free from the past. And I ask that I be set free from the pain that I carry today. And I ask that my mother and my stepfather be set free from the pain of the past. And I ask that they be able to move forward in peace today, just as I would like to. Well, I think there's a lot in my life to forgive, and when I tell people my story, it always sounds so odd because it just is one thing after another that happened during my life. And as the editor of New Connection, I write about forgiveness, I interview authors about forgiveness, we cover it, and yet it's been something that's very challenging in my own life. So when I was a child, my mother was abused by her father. And then he sexually abused multiple children in the family, her sister, cousins. So my mother would often send us to my grandparents every weekend. And so my sister and I, were also abused by my grandfather as well. I was about 12. My mother decided she wanted to move to California. She had read a book called Going Sane, which was a book about the Center for Feeling Therapy. Later on, we were only there for about 2 years, and it was shut down, and it was determined to be a psychological cult. And it was a very dangerous situation because at the center, they would give each other sexual assignments. But during that time, my mother met my stepfather. And at that point, my stepfather was a molester. And so someone who would walk in on you all the time, expose himself to you, just very predatory, hostile environment with him.
So you had your grandfather, the cult.
Yes.
And your stepfather.
Yes. Yeah.
And how were you, emotional, sexual, everything mixed in there?
My grandfather was sexual abuse. My stepfather was more exposing, walking in on you, just lascivious behavior. So I wasn't touched by my stepfather. My sister was. That was a turning point in my life because, I was about 14 to go to a therapist who was my advocate and to share my thoughts and feelings. That was a turning point for me. I just kind of tear strips. And I just would write words that I wanted to let go, like pain and anger, grief. I think I spelled sadness wrong. Just humiliation. And then what I would do is I'd take these and I just kind of fold them up into another sheet of paper. So it's like you're giving it back. It's just a symbolic way for me to say that this is yours and not mine to carry. But also when you wrap it up like this, I know it feels like you could look at it as a gift, because I think it's always a gift when we share this with other people, because you're giving them a gift of their own journey into self-realization. That if they cause these feelings, what within them would cause that? And if they were open to it, they could explore that. All those years ago when we addressed my grandfather, you took responsibility, which profoundly changed my life and made it so that I could heal. And for that, I am very grateful. But then when we had another molester come in, someone that you brought in, my stepfather, you wouldn't recognize that. And that also profoundly affected my life, but in a different way. And so today, when I look at another area of forgiveness with my stepfather, it's harder to do it, knowing that you didn't want to take responsibility for it. But today I have to look at it and come to terms with it on my own. And I don't want to carry the burden anymore of it. I don't want to carry the anger that I feel towards you and towards my stepfather. And so I'm just going to lay the burden at your feet. And it's your responsibility. And it's not mine. This is an opportunity to heal. It's an opportunity to explore deeper and to think about what happened. I'm an editor. I get books on forgiveness coming across my desk. There was a beautiful one that just came out by Desmond Tutu, The Book of Forgiving. And so I look through that, and that has brought me a lot of peace in the process. So just sharing the story and just looking at it more deeply is very healing. So it's just been a good opportunity to heal and to let go. And as this pain is released, I ask that it be released within me. I ask that the burning cleanse my heart and that it cleanse my soul. That it cleanse the hearts and soul of my mother and stepfather. And I forgive you. And I forgive myself.
How are you today? Can we talk to you for a minute? Do you mind? You don't mind? Thank you. I'm Lily.
Lily is a forgiver. Her goal is for people to forgive themselves and others that may have done harm in the past. Lily pulled up in her Toyota Dolphin camper and was eager to talk about the sign and her concept of fast forgiveness.
My project is Signs of Forgiveness, and it's based on the symbol of forgiveness, which I saw in a vision, if you will, and decided that forgiveness is something we could use a lot more of right now in our modern culture. Seems like a lot of the media outlets are just bent on having everyone be in an argument about something. So the Sign of Forgiveness is out to counter that. This is the Forgiveness Mobile, and I go out occasionally in it. I've traveled around the country a bit and will be more. I think it's the time for forgiveness on the planet. If people pause to think about it, there's really no other way to move forward. We can choose to fight or we can choose to forgive. And what happens when you forgive is exponentially more interesting, more fun, and more joyful. We're out talking to people today about forgiveness. This is the sign of forgiveness.
We'll forgive you for that.
Will ya?
Yeah.
Are you open to forgiving in your life, do you think?
Sure.
Yeah? What do you think about forgiveness?
I think it's underrated.
Yeah? Yeah?
I need to be a lot more.
You see much of it?
No, not near enough.
What do you think about having forgiveness be just more fresh and modern and around us?
Well, I think that I'm fine with forgiving them, but trusting again is an issue. Just have to build that back up, but everybody makes mistakes, so.
You know, I think everybody comes at the issue of forgiveness from a different place, and it's not always necessarily a spiritual place. It can be, but for some people, they're just sick of feeling angry, and they're sick of giving that other person that angry energy or that situation that happened to them in their life. For others, it's a completely spiritual experience. It's been so fun to talk to people about what forgiveness is for them.
We are all on a personal journey. Lily walks, talks, drives, and promotes her passion for fast forgiveness. Though it may not be possible for all, Lily doesn't give up. Before she took to the road once more, Lily gave Matt a memorable gift.
And I want to tell you, Matt, that for me it's very difficult to forgive what you did. It's a particularly difficult area for me to forgive, and I want you to know that I forgive you.
Thank you. Thank you for your honesty. I really appreciate
forgive
that. Thank you. Communication between people is the key, as it can start the forgiveness process. Lily feels that talking, meeting, and learning about people is a powerful gift. It's here that she feels people can learn about each other's hearts and minds.
Curtis was severely abused as a toddler. He and his biological sister were essentially abandoned by their biological parents and adopted by a biological aunt and her husband. And it was the adoptive uncle who was the abusive father in this story. It was when Curtis became comatose and began having seizures that his adoptive mother, his aunt, realized how serious the situation was and called for medical assistance. And Curtis and his sister were then transported by ambulance to the hospital in Reno. Curtis was in foster care for a couple of months until it became clear that he was going to progress developmentally and be adoptable. And so Curtis was 23 months of age when he came to live with us. I would be glad to read it to you.
Okay.
This is, I believe, a very important story, and I would like to think that millions of people will read this story because it's such a significant story. The title is Abandoning Anger. Forgive and forget, Mother always said. I thought I was forgiving. It took more energy to be angry than it did to just get over it. Then I adopted Curtis, the most severely abused child to survive in the United States at the time, with hair the color of Rumpelstiltskin spun gold, eyes like warm caramel, and skin the texture of silk. It was hard to imagine what crime this angelic toddler could have committed to warrant such violent abuse. At 15 months of age, he had been hit over the head with a chair for not cleaning his plate. He had been placed naked on hot stove burners and dipped in boiling water for soiling his diaper. The abuse took place at the hands of a biological uncle who had adopted him and become his father. The burns left large, red, itchy, keloid scars on his buttocks, legs, and back. The traumatic brain injury left him totally blind, deaf, and paralyzed on the left side until swelling was released in his skull. Curtis was comatose for 8 weeks. The right side of his brain was damaged to the extent that it didn't provide enough stimulation for growth to the left arm and leg. 1 month before his 2nd birthday, he functioned at the level of a 9-month-old. One afternoon when Curtis was 8, he looked up from playing and said, "Mom, do you think you can find the man who hurt me?" Curtis' request took me by surprise. I wondered if I located the abuser, if I could be as forgiving as as I wanted Curtis to be. "I think I can, Curtis. Why do you want to find him?" I asked. While I waited for his response, I searched my soul and found the feelings of anger that had once churned within my gut were gone. A peace had filled me instead of hatred. Curtis, Tina, their father, and I were family, forever. This was my life, and it was good. Curtis's answer confirmed my thoughts. I want to tell him I'm okay. This is right after you came to live with us, I think probably the first week. Here you are being doofy. This was when you were in high school. And you were in that program where they were testing to see how fast you could drill holes in the cribbage board and all that kind of stuff.
I'm partially paralyzed from at least on my left foot. I can't move my toes.
Have you been able to forgive?
Yeah. I actually forgave him a long time ago.
How did you do that? Why was it so easy for you think? For quick?
So quick? Well, it took some years, but it's like Mom says that if I can't forgive him, it's like just dwells. The pain and emotion's still there, but if I can't forgive a soul, it's like who can forgive me for doing something bad?
Was there a point where you were just so angry and just wanted to get back at him?
No, there was, but I just was taught not to.
So today you feel more, would it be fair to say that you feel more free and released from the anger?
Somewhat.
Well, I think it's an ongoing process because the hurts and the wrongs are ongoing. People continually hurt you and people continually do you wrong, and so it's an ongoing process. If I didn't have faith in God, I would not have Curtis. I told God when my husband and I began the adoption process for Curtis that we would take whatever child he had for us, and I don't know why he thought I was capable of Curtis. Sometimes I say, "Okay, God, I don't know what you were thinking. You must have more confidence in me than I have in myself, or is this some kind of crazy bad joke, God?" But God knew what He was doing and matched us up with Curtis, for which I will always be grateful. And He said to them, "When you pray, say, 'Father, hallowed be your name. Your kingdom come. Give us each day our daily bread. Forgive us our sins, for we also forgive everyone who sins against us. And lead us not into temptation.'" I would like Curtis to have some connection with his biological family, and if that meant reconnecting with the abusive father, I would like him to pick up this book and read this story and know that we have forgiven him. I think he would say he's sorry. I think he was sorry then, and I think he's sorry now. I don't think he intended to do it. I don't think he could help himself. This was
chopping firewood.
Have you ever thought about writing? Karen and Curtis are happy. With courage and strength and their ability to find forgiveness, they move forward with their lives without feeling anger or judgment. Are others as accepting as Karen and Curtis? Matt finds out on the street. Do you have a second to help us out? You look like you would want to help us out. We're doing a documentary film on forgiveness. And if you have 1 minute to watch the scene done by actors, we just want to get your opinion on it.
You went to prison.
Okay, I was young. I was stupid. It was 10 years ago. It was so long ago.
Stupid is right.
You know, it doesn't matter if it was 10 years or 20 years that passed. I mean, what you did, that affected the lives of people and so much, even today.
I feel bad. I feel bad for what happened. I do. Can't you see that?
They should never have released you from prison. You can... You're not going to get any forgiveness from me.
Well, what'd she go to prison for?
We don't know. We keep it general. Would that matter in terms of forgiveness?
Yes.
Okay, so a small crime like, petty theft versus murder.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And what about if that person in either way is really remorseful and is asking for forgiveness? What do you say to that?
Oh.
No wrong answers.
I guess
here.
if you really knew them, you might be able to forgive them if I really felt they were remorseful.
They should never have released you from prison.
It was 10 years ago.
You know, it doesn't matter if it was 10 years or 20 years that passed. I mean, what you did, that affected the lives of people and so much, even today.
Forgiveness is you have to decide that you're going to be able to move on, say, maybe I don't agree with what you did.
I think you're carrying a weight around that affects you for the rest of your life. I think it's a personal thing, and sure, I think there are lots of things that some people just are unable to forgive, but they pay the price for it.
Look, I know he abused you when you were younger. I can't even imagine what that must have been like. I'm not going to pretend to know.
If I forgive him, it's like telling him that what he did to me is okay. I just want him to suffer.
It's a hard one. I believe, though, we should forgive.
Okay.
Easier said than done, but hard but important.
Because I feel and strongly believe that forgiving somebody, even for this, is going to help you heal. It's going to free your soul. It's going to free your mind.
I don't know. I've never been in that situation to feel that much pain. So.
Okay.
The effects of childhood abuse can actually last a lifetime. They can include problems connecting with other people, problems communicating with others, problems in relationships with others, and in addition, on the inside, a lot of turmoil. I actually see conflicted emotions where part of the person struggles to understand and forgive the perpetrator, rightfully so, and then the other part wants so badly to understand and forgive, particularly if the perpetrator was a loved one, like a parent or some sort of a caregiver.
The process of forgiveness to me means that I have to mature in my humility toward humankind. But it also means that the process of forgiveness means that I have to be grounded and motivated to serve others. But more important than that, that I have to operate from the perspective that what I'm trying to do is to accomplish something greater than myself.
Elie Wiesel, who is a Holocaust survivor you may or may know about, I've heard him speak several times, and one time someone asked him if he had forgiven the Nazis, and he said yes. Well, I was still young enough, and and learning about all of the dynamics of forgiveness and compassion, that I was shocked. And he said, I won't give them that. I will not let them take me to their level. I will never forget what they did, and I will never say it was right.
That's two different things. Yeah.
But I will not be as they are.
Do you think it's harder to forgive ourselves or others?
I think it's hard. Well, it depends. It depends on the depth of the hurt that feel like we've been hurt from someone else. But I think most people struggle with forgiving themselves because we're hard on ourselves. We're in a society that's looking for doing and accomplishing. And if we don't do those things, and if we don't accomplish, or if we make mistakes, we look at the negative instead of the positive in our lives.
When we are able to forgive ourselves, are we creating like a new personal identity?
That's an interesting question. I think probably we are, because when we have something we need to forgive ourselves for, something we feel really bad about, it kind of undermines our identity. We have to sort of figure out who we are in light of this thing that we've done that isn't who we thought we were.
You just mentioned that everybody needs to forgive. Somebody may have a difficulty with that concept, especially if they were hurt in a major way of some kind. For example, someone that lost their child in a shooting or something. But you're saying that everybody is required or should?
Everybody stands to benefit from forgiving. I think would be the way that I would put it. Whether we should forgive is kind of, your particular moral framework makes that decision for you. In my moral framework, yes, I feel that I am required to forgive. But psychologists, I don't think as a rule would say that. They would say there are lots of ways you can deal with an issue. You can reconcile but not forgive. You can forgive but not reconcile.
Forgiveness is not a single magnanimous gesture in response to an isolated offense. It is part of a continuum of human engagements in healing broken relationships. This is well said by a pioneer of forgiveness, founder of the UK-based The Forgiveness Project. Since 2003, Marina Cantor-Casino has been collecting stories of reconciliation and forgiveness for an exhibition titled The F Word. Cantor-Casino says that forgiveness cuts public opinion down the middle like a guillotine. She says there are those who see forgiveness as an immensely noble and humbling response to atrocity, and then there are others who simply laugh it out of court. That is why the F Word exhibit was created. You just talked about the F Word exhibit. Can you go into a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, over the course of that year when I was collecting the stories, I started out with quite a simplistic view. I wanted to just meet and interview victims who had experienced atrocity and had reached this magical place of forgiveness and forgiven the unforgivable. And I soon realised that that was grossly oversimplifying and that forgiveness was a rocky road. And actually it wasn't a destination, it was a journey, and that one day you might forgive, the next day you might something might trigger it, and you might hate all over again. So I then got much more interested in the complexity of forgiveness. And I also got interested in the stories of perpetrators or other former perpetrators of violence, people who now used their aggression as force for peace. And I think it's easier for us very often to look outside of ourselves and to offer forgiveness to the other as an act of generosity, as a gift. But when it comes to your own personal life, we're hard on ourselves, and it's very hard. You have to have a lot of self-awareness, a lot of self-acceptance. You have to really be prepared to go inward. And there's a lovely quote that I love by the writer James Baldwin. He said one of the reasons people cling to their hate so stubbornly is that they fear once hate is gone, they'll be forced to deal with their pain.
Someone said that the heart does two things. It pumps blood and it breaks. And it's supposed to break. Our heart breaks every day. So let's say that reconciliation, at least the way that I've envisioned it, doesn't happen. That breaks my heart. The choice I have is whether it's broken open or closed. So a heart broken closed is a bitter heart. An open heart would be, some people call it a soft heart, is a heart that's willing to love again, myself and others.
Viktor Frankl was a psychiatrist in Austria during World War II and was actually in a concentration camp and lost most of his family members, was tortured. It was a terrible situation, and he talks in his book, A Man's Search for Meaning, about going to one of the trials for one of his abusers and seeing that abuser in a different light and seeing him as a frail old man or frail, broken down man instead of this scary monster. And for him, that was very powerful.
I think of a woman I met named Patricia, and Patricia's mother had been brutally murdered here in Oregon. And for 14 years after that murder, Patricia went through all kinds of things, those tools, you know, looking for a way to get beyond the murder. And then she heard of this new program that Oregon offered victims of violent crime. And it's called Facilitated Dialogue. And it's offered in about 24 states in the nation now. But what it allows, for the first time, is for victims of serious and violent crime, so in this case, a family member of someone who was murdered, to sit at a table right across from their perpetrator, right across from them, and to look them in the eyes and to ask them whatever it is they need to ask them. And so she got to sit across from that man and ask anything she wanted. And it took 6 hours of him going through the step-by-step process of what he did to her mother. And he'd keep on saying, do you want me to go on? And she said, yes, yes, yes. And he's weeping, and he's weeping. Are you sure you want me to say what's next? Are you sure? Yes. Now, why would she want that? She got the answers. She knew exactly. She didn't have to imagine anymore. And she said, and I did it because I wanted him to that was his punishment. It wasn't sitting in a cell. It was having to look me in the eye, 3 feet away from me, and tell me the worst of what he'd done.
Martin Luther King said that love and forgiveness essentially is, these are the only attitudes I can take towards my enemy, he said, which can change their hearts whether they like it or not. And so it's, I'd probably counsel you, if your daughter never chose to forgive or reconcile, to love her anyway. And ambush her with love whenever you had a chance. Because the only thing you have to lose is the avoidable pain.
So Matt came to me, kind of shared his story and what he's been through, and expressed probably his biggest desire. I was expecting to forgive himself, but really most of the pain and angst that he's been experiencing has been about not being forgiven by others. And so I could tell immediately the real answer for his pain was learning to forgive those people who have a hard time forgiving him for what he did.
Maddie, don't worry, because this is the last time I will try to contact you. You don't have to worry about seeing me or going to court again. My only questions for you are, aren't you learning about forgiveness every Sunday in church? Has your mom and stepdad taught you to forgive and to offer second chances for people? Do you understand the irreplaceable value of a parent wanting a relationship with their child? I hope so. I have tried and tried so hard to have a relationship with you over the last 5 years. I know you're upset about the things that I did, but it's not who I am. I am living a happy, productive life now, and I wish I could share it with you. There isn't a day that goes by that I don't think of you, Maddie. I miss you more than you can imagine. My favorite time in my life was raising you, caring for you, and... See, I'm going to start getting emotional now. My favorite time in my life was raising you, caring for you, and loving you as my only child. I love you very much. My family does too. Please never forget this. I pray that one day you will want to know me again as I do you. Please do me one favor. Save this letter and all the letters I've sent you. I hope over the years you'll return to them. Maybe they'll help soften your heart. Until then, the door is always open if you want to speak or visit me.
Over time, as she's not showing signs of forgiving you, you are getting more angry, frustrated.
Yes. If I
disappointed.
Was to read this to you a year ago, I would have probably been more emotional. Now it's more, I've pushed that sadness away and anger is coming in. I don't like that.
A lot of my philosophies around forgiveness come from studying the work of Viktor Frankl. One of the things he found is we go through some really painful, terrible stuff in life. Mm-hmm. The question is, do they count for something? Do they mean something, or are they just for suffering? Is it just bad luck that this has happened to you, or does it count for something? Does it serve a purpose? Mm-hmm. And most people, regardless of their spiritual beliefs, tell me they kind of feel like this is a journey of becoming. We're here to grow and learn, and we have all these crazy experiences that teach us things. So if that's true, I believe maybe every experience that happens is here for that reason.
Well, I do believe that there's a reason for this, and this is an experience I have to go through, but it doesn't make it any easier. I mean, it doesn't really make it any easier because life is moving on, and I still cannot talk to her, and she won't give me the time of day. And
that just means you're still in the middle of the lesson.
I'm in the middle of the lesson, and I want the lesson to end, damn it.
So often, people serve as a mirror for us, and whatever they're doing that bothers you so much is there to show you what you need to work on in yourself. And so I think at first Matt couldn't see that, and maybe now is starting to see that if he wants love and forgiveness, that he's just got to start giving it, and that'll be the answer.
Matt has a difficult road ahead. Maybe time will heal. Maybe it won't. One thing for certain is Matt's time with Kim helped him to see that understanding his daughter's viewpoint is crucial for healing. Being sensitive to his daughter's feelings and how she may relate to his poor choices is necessary if Matt wants reconciliation and to come together again as father and daughter. The journey of forgiveness continues with a heartbreaking story about a Native American man named Arnold. As he will tell you in his story, he has been given a second chance at life.
Forgiveness in my own journey that I traveled has played a major role in my healing. I think number one, making an effort or trying to kill myself, that goes against natural and spiritual laws, and not only did I pull the trigger of that gun, but I had to live with being blind as a result of a failed suicide attempt. I had my jaw wired closed, and I had nasal tubes in my nose, and I had a tracheotomy tube in my neck. I had a gastric feeding tube in my stomach, and so it was a painstaking process. So I've made those efforts over the years to forgive myself and let go of it and to be okay with it. I'm Shoshone, Paiute, and part Irish actually. Right now we are out in West Jordan, Utah, and we're at a ranch called Sagewood Ranch.
So you mentioned that coming out here is, peaceful, and the buffalo are powerful, and is it
like looking back in your past, it's a sort of healing for you. Would that be accurate for your own story?
Oh yeah, in my own life, I have attended a lot of ceremonies, the Sundance ceremony and other ceremonies, and those ceremonies have been here for many years, and that's been a part of my healing of forgiving, and also for reconciliation, you know, to help me to continue to maintain peace of mind, you know, peace within on a daily basis.
The rivers, the ponds, the lakes, the oceans, all the waters, we thank you. Forgive each and every one of us. Maybe somewhere along our journey on the road that we've been on, we tried to end our own lives and cut it short. We ask of the four natural elements, we ask of all that's sacred and holy to forgive us.
You know, oftentimes when, you know, what I understand, people get lost or are seeking, you know, it's that disconnect from, you know, God's creation, from spiritual and natural laws. When my father died, you know, when he took his own life, you know, just the you know, the disconnect, you know, the willingness for him not to want to communicate, you know, what was troubling him inside. Looking back now, it's almost like a generational curse that occurred through my family regarding the suicides. You know, that curse led me to the point where back in 1988 I tried to take my own life. You know, and by doing so I threw away my original dreams of attending several universities to play college basketball and football. I've been asked this question over the years while speaking with different audiences. How did you make it? You know, what did you do? Because I was in a world of hurt. You know, I got really addicted to pain medication. Time heals. You know, and family that cared. My mother, sisters, aunties, uncles, grandparents. It was a damn hard transition, you know, but I had no choice. If I had another choice, if I could turn back the clock, you know, the hands of time, I would, you know. And the bottom line is, you know, I woke up and I was alive.
What advice do you have for people that have tried to take their own life?
Forgiveness needs to occur for, you know, people that caused harm or did something, you know, they need to forgive. That we're given as human beings, as spiritual beings, as told Creator, we thank you that we have a purpose why we came to this earth. And we thank you for bringing us to this place right now. When you were in a spiritual form before you came to this earth, you knew, you chose your parents. And you saw what you are going to experience when you came to this earth life. And you knew what you were going to go through. And you chose to come here during this time in life. Being blind and all the experiences I've been through has taught me to appreciate what I do have: ability to hear, ability to smell, to taste, to touch, to walk. Maybe I can't see physically with my eyes I have in my head, but there's other ways to see.
Over the last 60 minutes, we've met a variety of people, professionals, religious leaders, doctors, and everyday people who have faced their own personal forgiveness journeys head on. For many, these journeys are ongoing. Hearts will mend, minds will open, and families will reconcile if appropriate. Because of the brave men and women and their stories, we as viewers hopefully have taken away a new sense of unity. It is also the anticipation that we can grow from their individual journeys of pain, anger, hope, and forgiveness. Thank you for your fearlessness. You are our teachers. Even though Nelson Mandela was talking politically here, applying his message to our own personal situations is beneficial. He says, if there are dreams about a beautiful South Africa, there are also roads that lead to their goal. Two of these roads could be named goodness and forgiveness. May your journey to forgiveness manifest seeds of compassion, prosperity, and most importantly, love.